Okay, well, let me ask Karyn. So say a student coming to UB has not known about an accommodation, hasn't had one in the past, what would be their first steps? And if they're not sure that they would be eligible for one, what should they do?
A great question. We hear that pretty often, particularly at the graduate level where they may have not been diagnosed, or they are recently diagnosed and not sure if there's an eligibility factor. Their first thing is to reach out and talk to us. Literally sit down. I ask a series of questions. I listen for the answers. I look at the responses physically if I'm with them. Zoom has given me some limitations with that. And decide whether or not, again, the key here is, does it impact the ability to learn? And when we talk about learn, we talk about it in 3 phases. The access to the content, that means physical access in a classroom building, an online environment, and to the materials that are being used. Middle part is the understanding comprehension. Is there something that's not happening once they have access to that material, such as maybe a book needs to be in a PDF format or audio format, so the brain goes, I understand what I'm hearing and I'm seeing or I'm reading. And then the third part is demonstration of that knowledge. So those 3 key steps, where in that timeline, so to speak, does the impact of the disability cause a breakdown? Or is it in all 3 or a combination? We don't make any, obviously, judgment statements about the severity of the impact, because that is for the student to let us know. If a student uses extended time and still doesn't know the material because whatever reason there is, they can have all the time in the world. They're not going to know the material. So the accommodations are not meant to guarantee success. They're meant to guarantee access, and that's part of the initial conversation.
So do the students need to have a diagnosis? Like, say you talk to somebody, they're not sure, and you say, well, if there's a high likelihood or there is a likelihood, what do you do what do you advise that student who doesn't
depending
have a
on what they share with us. If it sounds like it's something along the lines of ADHD, ADD, or a learning-based disability, we do have a list of folks in the Baltimore, Washington area who my colleagues and I in our state chapter received documentation from over the years that really provides a thorough assessment of information about that kind of diagnosis. And we give them a list of the students, say, you got to start making calls. You got to see what kind of insurance plan may cover it. You got to talk about costs and things along those lines. And the student may come back and be able to say, I was able to get testing done. This is what the documentation provides for you. If they are already working with someone maybe for anxiety, but they never thought about anxiety being a disability because they function in every aspect, but when it comes down to certain parts of their learning, they don't recognize it's the anxiety that's causing difficulties. We have a form that we can give to their psychologist or psychiatrist to complete, to let us know about the impact that the student is sharing with them, the difficulties they're experiencing, in other words. And then the student and I will determine, based on that kind of information, what the accommodations would be. They're getting medication for ADHD and never thought about it being, again, a diagnosis that would be an impact negatively. We have a form for that to give to their diagnostician or their medication provider. So we do have students who just don't recognize that it's the disability. It's not just that they're not doing well.
So Karyn, what kinds of things have you seen? You've mentioned ADHD and anxiety. What other kinds of undiagnosed, potentially, that students don't recognize that maybe they are eligible for accommodations if they pursue that?
We also have a lot of students who have medical related diagnoses, who don't recognize that being out because of the disability, sickle cell, for example. We have a handful of students who are diagnosed with that disease who don't recognize that when they're absent, letting their instructor know they're out due to a flare-up or a need for a hospitalization can be protected under the ADA, because they can't control when it's going to happen, how it's going to impact them, but we can control for the impact it has if they're registered with our office.
So I've heard also ulcerative colitis is ADA recognized.
Yep.
What about migraines?
It depends on how it impacts the person. So I know people, I myself included, who get a migraine once every 3-4 months. Sometimes it's hard to differentiate for me whether it's a real severe sinus headache infection or a migraine, but it really only impacts me being out maybe one day if I'm out at all. But there are more people who have migraines that are truly impactful of how they live. So if it means they can't sit in front of the computer for several hours when they're experiencing the onset or the coming back from, again, how do we accommodate that without the penalization that can come into play? So it's again, we make these decisions not based on necessarily the diagnosis alone. The order that I look at when I meet with a student is they do have to have the documentation. So that's a part of it, it's not the primary. The impact the student describes to me is the most important piece, followed by the history of use, if there is a history. If I can't count on history, then the documentation. But that interactive process during the intake is actually spelled out in the law. So we really rely heavily on that discussion to see what is truly the impact. I've been in the field doing this work for the better part of 20 years. So I do have enough background, I would hope, from a humbling experience to know when I hear and see something that is relatively accurate.